Good afternoon and good morning, depending on your time zone. Welcome everyone to today's webinar on Module 1 of the fiscal year 2024 CSBG Annual Report. Today we will cover Module 1 of the Annual Report. My name is Minette Galindo, and I serve as the Policy, Data, and Evaluation Branch Chief here in the Division of Community Assistance within the Office of Community Services, where we administer the Community Services Block Grant, or CSBG. This webinar is a part of the FY24 CSBG Annual Reporting Webinar Series. We hope this webinar, as well as the others in this series, are helpful in successfully completing the CSBG Annual Report, data from which will be used to tell the CSBG story and the impact that your work is making across the country. Before we jump into today's webinar, it is really important that we ground ourselves in the 3 goals or priorities of the Community Services Block Grant. We all know that the CSBG Act outlines 3 key goals: to reduce poverty across income and across communities with low incomes, revitalize communities with low income, and empower low-income individuals and families. These priorities show up in a myriad of ways across the CSBG Annual Report. And because we're focusing today on Module 1, which is the administration of CSBG at the state and territory level, we thought it would be helpful to share some key highlights of what we're seeing in the information that gets submitted in Module 1. Alaska's Rural Cap Grow program worked in fiscal year 2023 to address food insecurity while maintaining the sustenance way of life for the people of Alaska through 5 community gardens in the Bering Strait. In Arizona, they used discretionary funding for the Trellis Literacy Program and Asylum Advocates Mobile Bus, which created a substance abuse recovery outreach program. And they also partnered with the local health department to tackle quality of life through the lens of social determinants of health. We also amplify through the Module 1 data submitted how 9th District in Georgia provided hygiene services with offering free mobile showers, food, and free laundry services for those most vulnerable in their communities. And we lift up the Southeastern Idaho Community Action Agency, who partnered with Walmart and opened a birthday closet to gather clothing for children and families with low income to celebrate their birthday. I want to pause and let us all marinate on how incredibly important that is. Children in Idaho are able to hold on to a core memory and experience something as simple but important for their sense of self as celebrating their existence for their birthday because of the innovative solutions happening across this network. We see that same investment in youth in Missouri with the Community Action Partnership of Northeast Missouri for a school readiness program to ensure that the babies of that community showed up strong with clothing, shoes, and haircuts. 42 youth were able to focus on their education and development because their community wrapped their arms around them and showed up for them for their first day of school. These stories of how communities show up strong and mobilize a dollar through innovative solutions capture so much of the richness of CSBG. We can probably spend the entire webinar time discussing all the incredible work that's happening through these Module 1 submissions and innovative solution highlights in every single region, in every state, in all corners of the country. As we like to say, we see you, community action. Next slide. For today's webinar, we are going to cover a few of those reporting requirements review, including the sections of the report that capture a lot of what I just shared. We are going to go over the training and technical assistance resources, and then we'll also spend some time answering your questions that you can drop in the question and answer pod, as was mentioned earlier. As a reminder from that housekeeping slide, if you have a question, use the question and answer button that appears below in the Zoom menu. This allows us to collect your questions and answer them in one place. Next slide. I am thrilled to introduce the presenters for today, who are thought leaders across OCS and provide support each and every day to CSBG grant recipients. Charles Cheer serves as a statistician with the Policy Data and Evaluation Branch and is the Data and Evaluation Specialist for Regions 3 and 10. In his role, Charles is the lead for Tribal Data and Evaluation, one of the project officers for the Performance Management and Alignment for Training and Technical Assistance, a cooperative agreement, and he leads several special initiatives focused on data equity, quality, and evaluation. Jessica Kane serves as a program specialist for Region 8 and is the lead and serves on the OCS Equity Action Work Group and the ACF Equity Action Work Group. She also serves as the lead for our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act partnerships and is the lead for DCA and OCS on the Homelessness Prevention Services Work Group for ACF. I am now going to turn it over to our esteemed presenters to continue presenting today on Module 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Manette, for your opening remarks and agenda overview. I'll now go into a review of the basic reporting requirements for the annual report before we go into specifics about Module 1. The annual report is a requirement born out of a statutory authority, specifically the CSBG Act. Among other things, grant recipients should be reporting an account of expenditures of CSBG funds, how the funds are spent on administrative costs, and a summary describing training and technical assistance offered by the state. These components are what are reflected in Module 1 reporting. At this time, I wanted to do a quick knowledge check, and there will be a few of them throughout this presentation. And this is interactive. This is a place in which we'd like you to answer based on this question here. So when is the fiscal year 2024 CSBG annual report due? Is it A, April 1st, B, September 30th, C, March 31st, or D, October 1st? Okay, I'll give it a couple more seconds for folks to answer. Okay, I think we can go ahead and show the correct answer now. And the correct answer is March 31st. Congratulations, everybody. I think everybody got that correct. So in addition to the due date, please note that in prior years, the annual report also included reports for CARES and/or disaster funding. This is no longer included as CARES and disaster supplements have been expended. The FY24 annual report does not include the proposed changes of Annual Report 3.0, other than a change from using DUNS to UEI number as a grant recipient identifier. The data reporting for the CSBG annual report remains the same as last year's annual report. Grant recipients should already be familiar with the integrated strategy OCS is using to collect the information for the annual report. However, we do understand that there are some new administrators, and this may be the first time. So we do suggest that you refer to our CSBG Action Transmittal 2025-1, the submission of the FY 2023 CSBG annual report, FY 2024 CSBG annual report, and that link is going to be dropped in the chat. Don't hesitate to reach out to your evaluation and data and evaluation specialists and program specialists if you have any questions and need help. We will provide the contact information at the end of this webinar. We can move on to the next slide, please. Just to reemphasize why we report, this is truly a shared responsibility across the network at the federal, state, local, and national levels. It's very important to work with your internal and external colleagues when completing Module 1. While in the CSBG State Plan, you report your plan for your next year. Then Module 1 gives you the opportunity to show how effective you were in implementing those plans. OCS uses this information to then show stakeholders and agencies' efficiency, effectiveness, and overall financial condition, as well as to inform future training and technical assistance. There has been increased conversations in outcomes management, performance management, and evidence-based practices. These are becoming the gold standard in the public sector, and we want to make sure that we are staying up to date with these standards to show just how much CSBG matters to the fight against poverty. Next slide, please. This visual overview may look familiar to you. As we discuss additional targeted TNTA, there will be dedicated webinars to unpack each of these critical steps. Today's webinar is focused on submitting the data to OCS. Now I'll pass it on to my colleague Jessica to continue the overview of Module 1.
Thank you, Charles, and hello, everybody. We will now be going into greater detail on Module 1 of the fiscal year 2024 CSBG Annual Report. Module 1 of the CSBG Annual Report focuses on state administration and is comprised of the 9 sections shown on the screen. Charles and I will now spend the remainder of the webinar reviewing each section and highlighting certain items for closer attention. But first, I want to take a moment to review some important considerations. First, when preparing for the annual report, consult with various internal departments such as your fiscal team or other departments you work closely with and request input. Also consider feedback from outside sources such as eligible entities, the ACSI survey, OCS, or other internal and external partners in the administration, and any other real partners that you work closely with, including community partners. This is an opportunity to collect and reflect on feedback, identify achievements and highlights, and explore areas for growth over the past fiscal year. On a similar note, the completion of the annual report is an opportunity to delve into the data and feedback to identify areas for performance improvement on the state and local level. Considering ways to improve year upon year assures accountability and improves outcomes across the network. Lastly, each office should complete a final check before submitting their annual report. Please ensure that you are entering data into the correct year, that you are providing complete responses to each question and are making a selection as needed, and that the data entered is in the correct item and is the correct value. We also request that you do a thorough review to check for consistency, ensuring you are not getting drastically different outcomes than expected, and that you provide unique answers, especially under narrative responses. Lastly, during your final check, please identify any areas that require an update to your CSBG state plan and work with your program specialist to open your plan as needed. This includes changes to things like the eligible entity list, formula or budget changes, official changes, changes in policy, and other major updates. Now let's move forward into exploring each section of the annual report, starting with Section A, State Administration, which includes contact details for each CSBG state lead agency. Most of Section A is auto-populated from the CSBG state plan. It should only be updated if there has been a change to the information provided in the state plan. As a note for A1D, please be sure to include the authorizing official's name and contact information, and not that of the CSBG state point of contact. For A2, be sure to check the box for any additional programs that were administered by the lead agency during the reporting year. Also be sure to specify the grant or program in the narrative box if United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, Housing and Urban Development, HUD, Department of Labor, DOL, or other is checked. Section B, Statewide Goals and Accomplishments, highlights the progress of the state in achieving state goals and provides an opportunity to share accomplishments from the year. For item B1, Progress and State Plan Goals, you will identify if all goals were accomplished, if goals were partially accomplished, or if goals were not accomplished. For all goals accomplished, please describe how they were accomplished, including outcomes. For goals partially accomplished, describe which goals were met, how those goals were met, and provide an update on goals that have not yet been accomplished. For goals not accomplished, which means none of your goals in the state plan were accomplished, please explain in detail why goals were not accomplished. Overall, OCS is looking for any progress on state goals. It is understandable if all goals are not accomplished, and this is an opportunity to explain in the appropriate boxes as to why. We are looking for continuous improvement across the network, and we really want to hear about the lessons learned. For item B2, eligible entity overall satisfaction targets, This applies to the American Customer Satisfaction Index, or the ACSI survey results, which is an opportunity for eligible entities to provide feedback to the state office. When completing the table in B2, please note that the future target should not be less than the current target, as progressive targets support the consistent focus on continuous improvement and growth and improving our network effectiveness. For item B3, eligible entity feedback and involvement, this requests a clear description on how the state has implemented changes based on the feedback from the network and/or other sources such as OCS or the ACSI survey. OCS uses this information to examine how the state responds to the needs of their local community. Item B4, State Management Accomplishment, is an opportunity to share a notable management accomplishment achieved by the CSBG State Office over the past fiscal year. Take this time to celebrate and share your successes that you've achieved along the way. Also use this as an opportunity to further reflect on your work and identify new management goals for the coming year. Item B5, Eligible Entity Management Accomplishment, requires 3 notable, unique, and specific management accomplishments of the eligible entities. This is different than those of the state. Again, utilize this time to celebrate accomplishments of the eligible entities and to reflect on how to move forward performance management by incorporating any effective management and leadership skills across your network. This will improve internal processes, services provided, and strategies for serving individuals and families across all entities. And lastly, we really want to emphasize item B6. As noted, that is where all the stories that Manette had shared earlier have come from. And this is item B6 is the innovative solution highlights, and it requires 3 unique and specific examples of innovative or creative approaches from across your network. We encourage states and eligible entities to stay current on the available research and best practices regarding innovative solutions in the anti-poverty work. This question allows the state and eligible entity to share how their network has engaged in this process and to explore further innovative solutions that can address causes and conditions of poverty across your communities. When filling out these highlights and narrative accomplishments, please ensure that you are sharing highlights. Please ensure that when you are sharing highlights that you are not including personal identifying information. All information that identifies an individual or family that is receiving services should be excluded. An example would be something like name, age, health condition, etc. of any beneficiary. Section C, the CSBG Eligible Entity Update, uses the eligible entity list as a crucial tool in keeping OCS informed of the status of your eligible entity network, and it alerts OCS to areas where additional TNTA may be needed and ensures that all counties are being served. Item C1 provides an opportunity to share updates regarding your eligible entity list. In this section, you will select yes or no for each eligible entity to identify if changes were made. If yes, there are several options for labeling the changes made to your eligible entity list, and you should provide a brief narrative just to describe the changes. There are 3 changes I would like to visit briefly. De-designation is the process by which a local entity loses its status as a CSBG eligible entity. A local entity can request a federal review of the state's decision to de-designate. While rarer than de-designations, an eligible entity can also elect to voluntarily relinquish their eligible entity status. This is not a decision that is made by the state. And finally, mergers refers to the merging or any other combination of 2 or more eligible entities that were listed separately in the CSBG state plan. Prior to submission of the annual report, the state should reflect any changes in the eligible entity master list and the CSBG state plan. Please reach out to your program specialist to assist in this process. And while this section provides an opportunity to provide updates to OCS on changes to your entity list, we would like to emphasize that OCS should be notified of potential changes, including new designations, de-designations, or relinquishment of eligible entity status prior to the annual report review period. We strongly encourage states to reach out early and frequently regarding potential corrective action, as we can provide support through TNTA for the state and/or eligible entity. I will now turn it back over to Charles.
Thank you, Jessica. I'll now cover Section D, Organizational Standards for Eligible Entities. In the CSBG state plan, the state indicated the organizational standard that it would implement. It should auto-populate in the annual report in OLDC. If the type of organizational standards changed, please update it in the CSBG state plan. D.1a and D.1b enables grant recipients to tell us more about their assessment process for organizational standards. D.1a gives multiple choices to check for assessment types, such as self-assessment or on-site CSBG monitoring. You can choose more than one option. This auto-populates from the CSBG state plan with the option for the state to update information based on its actual implemented assessment process. D.1b allows a written narrative to be provided to describe the assessment process as implemented by the state. For example, reporting exactly how self-assessment or an on-site CSBG monitoring are conducted, or such information is submitted by eligible entities to the state. D.2 asks for information on the number of eligible entities that were assessed for performance on organizational standards and how many eligible entities met state standards and at what level, and state target versus actual performance. For example, the number of states that met all 100% of state organizational standards, or the number of states that met between 70% and 79% of state organizational standards. D.2a allows a written narrative to describe the challenges and factors contributing to the difference between targets and actual results. D.2b captures the percentage meeting organizational standards by category, including categories such as community engagement, board governance, and data and analysis. Please report the number that met all standards in a given category. D.3 asks for reporting on whether the state developed a technical assistance plan, or TAP, to assist an eligible entity meet organizational standards. For more detailed information on the organizational standards, please refer to IM 138. We'll drop a link in the chat for it. Now we'll go over Section E, State Use of Funds. The purpose of this section is to report on the funds received and spent during the federal fiscal year, October 1st to September 30th. Please ensure that any allocations, obligations, and carryover amounts reported are for funds awarded in this federal fiscal year and are reconciled with the amounts reported in the Federal Financial Report, or FFR. Overall, the focus of Section E is the allocation and utilization of funds for state administrative purposes and discretionary activities under CSBG. I'll now go over some key items in Section E. With E.2, OCS collects data on planned and actual allocations and obligations of CSBG funds to ensure a transparent distribution of eligible entities in accordance with Section 675CA of the CSBG Act and IM 37. This is a 90% pass-through to eligible entities. By comparing the allocated funds against the obligated amount for each fiscal year, OCS verifies that 90% of the CSBG funds are utilized as intended. Carryover, administrative, and remainder or discretionary should be excluded from E.2. This information helps OCS monitor fund allocation, promote accountability, and support the continuous involvement and improvement in programs for the benefit of the communities served. With E.4, OCS collects data on the state administrative funds to ensure transparency and proper allocation of resources. Only enter amount of current year funds obligated in the federal fiscal year. According to Section 675CB2 of the CSBG Act, states can utilize up to 5% or $55,000 of their CSBG allotment for administrative activities. By gathering this information, OCS monitors the amount states allocate for the fiscal year, enabling them to manage funds effectively and support vital community programs. With E.7, OCS collects data on the use of remainder or discretionary funds as outlined in Section 675CB and 676B2 of the CSBG Act. Do not include amounts reported in E2 or E4. If no discretionary or remainder funds are available, enter 0. The information on E.7 enables OCS to monitor how states allocate up to 5% of their funding for discretionary purposes after they have distributed the minimum of 90% to eligible entities and used the maximum of 5% for administrative purposes. By tracking this data, OCS gains insight into the various ways states utilize these discretionary funds, which can involve competitive funding opportunities, training and technical assistance activities, or additional administrative expenses, among other uses. Okay, time for a quick knowledge check on what we just covered. In the chat, please answer the following question. For E.7, remainder or discretionary funds, if no discretionary or remainder funds are available, then you would A, fill NA, B, leave blank, C, enter 0, or D, write no discretionary remainder funds are available. We'll give you a few seconds to answer this. Okay, ding, ding, ding. Enter 0, C. Great job, everybody. All right, so with so I'm going to continue and talk about Section E. With E.10, OCS collects data on total obligations and expenditures to ensure proper allocation of the Community Services Block Grant funds. By reviewing this information, OCS can verify that at least 90% of the funds are distributed to eligible entities. No more than 5% is used for administrative activities, and that no more than 5% of discretionary funds are utilized for discretionary activities. For E.10A, it should equal the amount obligated but liquidated at the end of the previous fiscal year. It should include amounts not yet paid to eligible entities and unspent state portion of CSBG. For E.10B, it should equal the authorized amount less the amount paid to eligible entities and drawn for state expenditures. Within OLDC, both E.10A and E.10B should be auto-populated from table E.9. We'll now discuss Section F, State Training and Technical Assistance. In Section F, you'll describe how the state delivered CSBG funded training and technical assistance to eligible entities by topic, start and end date, and a brief narrative description. The type of technical assistance or training and topic are pre-populated from your state plan. For F.2, if technical assistance was provided by an organization other than the state, you would also indicate that in this section. Please briefly describe their involvement. OCS would like to emphasize the importance of training and technical assistance, whether provided directly by the state office or indirectly by a contractor, as it's a critical function of the state CSBG office. As you are aware, training and technical assistance should be made available to all entities in a given state and can be tailored to a particular topic as appropriate. On a related side note, OCS encourages grant recipients to utilize the TNTA survey from fiscal year 2022 to inform decision-making. Additionally, please consider the multiple cooperative agreements with training and technical assistance providers, which enables TNTA services available to grant recipients at no cost. I'll now pass it on to Jessica for Section G.
Thank you, Charles. Section G describes activities that the state supported with CSBG remainder funds focused on state efforts to maintain linkages and communication. Throughout this section, OCS would like to see how states helped leverage CSBG funding to better serve individuals, families, and communities in need. Items G.1 and G.1a relate to linkages and coordination at the state level to ensure access to services. And G.1, states will select from multiple options that reflect what linkages and coordination efforts were conducted on the state level. Please select all that apply and ensure that your responses align with what was outlined in your state plan. Please also ensure you provide a strong narrative in G.1a to describe the linkages and coordination at the state level that were created or maintained to ensure increased access to CSBG services. If you deviated from the state plan, you should include an explanation in this narrative. Similarly, in G.2, we request a narrative regarding state linkages and coordinations at the local level. In this item, please review and update the responses from the CSBG state plan to identify the actual activities for linkages and coordinations that occurred at the local level, including an explanation for any changes from the original state plan. This narrative should include linkages with governmental and other social services, especially anti-poverty programs, that ensure the effective delivery or coordination of CSBG services to people and that avoid duplication of services. For G3, eligible entities, linkages, and coordination, the description in G should be specific to how states assured linkages and coordination at the entity level. And in G.3b, states should describe if there were service gaps in communities and how coordination across community partners helped to fill these service gaps. This should include information on how these gaps were identified as well. All narrative responses in this section should include what was actually done during the fiscal year and not what was planned. And any changes, and it should also include a description of why any changes were made from the CSBG state plan. For item G4, the WIOA Employment and Training Combined Plan Activities, it is important to clarify that this question is asking for a response from any state that is a combined plan partner program under a WIOA combined state plan. This is a different designation than the required one-stop partner, which many of the states fall under. So for fiscal year 2024, there are 7 states that fall under that specific designation of a combined plan partner program: Louisiana, Maryland, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Washington, and West Virginia. For G5, coordination among CSBG eligible entities and state community action associations, the state should provide additional information that clearly describes the coordinated efforts between the state association and eligible entities. To effectively coordinate and link services, OCS recognizes the importance of communication in the network and would like to see how the CSBG state office, the State Community Action Association, and the eligible entities all work together to better serve individuals and families. As a funder of the entities, and often the state associations, the CSBG state office should ensure timely and objective feedback on a range of topics to ensure continuous improvement and progress toward identified goals. So for item G.6, feedback to CSBG eligible entities and the State Community Action Association, the state is provided an opportunity to clarify and or provide additional information on how they provided feedback to their eligible entities and the state association regarding its performance related to the state accountability measures. This narrative should include the method to deliver feedback, such as work groups, emails, conference calls, as well as any outcomes resulting from the feedback. Again, we want to emphasize in this section that the narrative responses should include what was actually done during the fiscal year, and it should include any changes that were made from the CSBG state plan. Section H, Monitoring, Corrective Actions, and Fiscal Controls of the Annual Report, provides information related to monitoring, audits, and management decisions. This section ensures transparency, accountability, and compliance with regulations or requirements for the involved entities. Section H covers monitoring reviews and single audit management decisions, providing clarity on the processes and steps taken to resolve any identified issues. In item H1, the state should detail the monitoring visits conducted during the reporting year for CSBG eligible entities. The default value may be no review, so please make sure to double check and update the type of monitoring if a review was completed during the reporting year. This includes full on-site reviews of newly designated entities, follow-up reviews such as return visits to entities that failed to meet state goals, standards, or requirements, as well as any other relevant reviews. If a planned monitoring visit could not take place, please provide a brief explanation. This helps ensure transparency and accountability in the monitoring and corrective action measures taken under the CSBG Act. With regards to the section on corrective action, termination, and reduction of funding and assurance requirements, OCS wants to re-emphasize that the state should notify OCS of any potential actions early and often. OCS can provide targeted TNTA and support in addressing outstanding issues or concerns and in ensuring all action is in line with the CSBG Act and ensuring that all areas remain served through CSBG. We are here to help. Item H.6, single audit review, is to record and report the dates when the CSBG eligible entities' single audits were received and reviewed during the federal fiscal year. In accordance with the CSBG regulations, this item ensures compliance with federal requirements for grant recipients. Additionally, if there are any audit findings that require a management decision by a state, the date of that decision must also be provided. This allows for effective tracking, monitoring, and resolving of audit-related issues while maintaining transparency and accountability in the grant administration process. Lastly, for item H7, the single audit management decision, the state will briefly outline and describe any CSBG-related management decisions that have been made in accordance with the state procedures for CSBG-eligible entity single audits. This includes providing the audit finding reference number from the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, FAC, along with the description of any required actions and timelines for correction. This ensures transparency and proper documentation of all decisions made during the single audit process, as well as offering a clean and a clear path for resolving any identified issues within the specified timeframes. We're going to do another knowledge check. So please provide your answer in the chat. For item H.1, if a monitoring was planned but not implemented, A, do not provide any explanation. B, provide a brief explanation. C, only report on the date it was originally scheduled. Or D, only provide the name of the eligible entity that was supposed to be monitored. I'll give you guys a few seconds. Looking good. Oh, sorry, highlighted the wrong. So the correct answer is B. You guys are all correct. I accidentally highlighted C. Again, the correct answer is B, so you provide a brief explanation. Again, this helps ensure transparency and accountability in the monitoring and corrective measures taken. So now we'll move on to section I, Results-Oriented Management and Accountability System, also known as Roma. Focus on the implementation of Roma at the state level. Item I.1 asks you to confirm the performance measurement system that the state and eligible entities use as required by Section 678E(a) of the CSBG Act and assurance under Section 676B(12) of the Act. Item I.1a should only be answered in response to I.1 was that the state uses Roma. OCS would like to know whether and how Roma facilitates enhanced data analysis and evaluation among the states that choose to use this as the performance measurement system. Item I.1b should be answered only if Roma was not selected as the response to I.1. If your state does not use Roma, describe the system that the state used for performance management. For both items, please provide an update regarding any changes in the procedures or to data collection systems that were initiated or completed in the reporting period. For item I.2, state Roma support asks the state to explain how they supported the eligible entities in using the Roma system or the alternative performance measurement system to promote continuous improvement. For example, describe any data system improvements, support for needs assessments, support for planning, data analysis, etc. For item I.3, state review of eligible entity data, the state should provide additional information describing the procedures and activities the state used to review data from the eligible entities for completion and accuracy. This information should include what steps the state took to ensure the data submitted was accurate and complete. OCS wants to ensure that the states are taking the time to review, analyze, and clean their data prior to final submission to OCS, and having a thorough process for data analysis ensures the information reported is accurate and representative of the work that the CSBG network conducted throughout the reporting period. Under item I.4, state feedback on data collection analysis and reporting, states should indicate yes or no to whether they provided written feedback to CSBG eligible entities on their progress toward meeting Roma goals. If the response is yes, then the state should describe the process for providing timely feedback. If the response is no, the state should provide clarifying information that describes how they plan to provide more timely feedback in the future. Under State Accountability Measures FSII, it is a requirement for states to provide each of their eligible entities with timely feedback on their performance in meeting Roma goals within 60 calendar days of submitting the annual report. And this question allows OCS to assess whether states can meet this requirement. And if not, think through what TNTA may be helpful for states going forward. Roma is all about continuous improvement. In item I.5, state and eligible entity continuous improvement requires 2 to 3 examples of changes made by eligible entities to improve service delivery and enhance impact on their analysis of performance data. When responding, it may be helpful to include information on why a state or entity decided to conduct the activity or service. For example, what data inform these continuous improvement activities? This question allows OCS to gauge whether and how states are making use of decisions, as well as identify any TNTA needs around data collection and analysis. Thank you so much for your time in reviewing all of Module 1 alongside us. Before opening time for questions, we wanted to highlight some additional resources from OCS. In the action transmittal, we detailed 3 categories of resources: tools, training, and technical assistance. The tools are the tangibles and the things you need to get the annual report done. This includes the CSBG Annual Report Toolkit, the Smart Forms, the Vendor Portal, and OLDC. The trainings are the dynamic conversations during which we clarify objectives and includes our annual report series for the fiscal year, along with past recorded webinars. And technical assistance is the homework, how you may be applying the knowledge and how we can help you better use that information. Technical assistance can be provided through your data and evaluation specialist or program specialist, the fiscal year 24 annual report office hours, or targeted TNTA referrals. Our goal is to see you all succeed, so please take advantage of these resources. I would like to pull attention to tools provided by OCS and how to find those. The CSBG Annual Report Toolkit is available now and updated regularly. This has the fillable tools for Module 1 along with other materials. The toolkit is easily accessed through the OCS Community Services Block Grant homepage. Just scroll to the bottom of the page, drop down the grant recipient resources, and find the applicable links and resources as noted in the bottom photo. The vendor portal, hosted on the NASCAS website as part of the OCS-funded cooperative agreement, is specific to those grant recipients that use a third-party system to submit their data. The webinar on December 3rd will review this tool. Lastly, the online data collection system is where all grant recipients, states, tribes, and territories must submit the complete Upcoming trainings can be found via our CSBG Events calendar page. There are several upcoming webinars that will be shared on the next slide. You can also access on-demand webinars that have been recorded and saved on the link provided in the chat. The annual report kickoff webinar from October 15th, 2024 is now available at this link. We will be continuing our FY24 CSBG Annual Report Webinar series with our next webinar, Explaining Eligible Entity Expenditures, Capacity, and Resources, occurring on November 14, 2024 from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will review the requirements for capturing expenditures and resources for eligible entities. The link to register can be found on the CSBG Events calendar page. Eligible entities are also invited to this webinar, so feel free to share this link. And here are the remaining topics and dates for the FY24 Annual Report Training Webinar Series, which again can be found in the action transmittal and the CSBG Events calendar page. Lastly, for targeted and general technical assistance, please reach out to your assigned program specialist and policy, data, and evaluation specialist. We work closely as a team, and we request that you include both contacts in any outreach. You can find your regional contacts on this on the page shared in the chat. Please also take note of the FY24 Annual Report office hours that will occur on March 4th and March 6th of 2025. More information will be provided as that time approaches. I am now going to pass it on to Charles, and thank you for having me today.
Great, thank you, everyone. We are now going to move into reviewing questions that you may have.